Other groups designed tracks for tiny headphones. ATEEZ designed tracks built for pure cinema.
Make some noise!
What kind of group makes a crowd look and sound like an invading army before they have even stepped onto the platform? The answer lies in the founding blueprint of KQ Entertainment's first boy group, ATEEZ. They debuted on the 24th of October 2018 with the EP Treasure Episode 1 All to Zero. Skipping the standard industry playbook that relies on soft, relatable introductions, ATEEZ dropped 2 single lead tracks for their debut, and Treasure. It was a maximalist, highly theatrical double strike from day one. The visual presentation featured sweeping desert landscapes, aggressive angular choreography, and a multi-dimensional pirate lore that felt more like world-building for a fantasy film than a standard K-pop concept. Their massive creative scale wasn't an artistic style they stumbled into over time, but a non-negotiable choice from the start to separate themselves from their polished fourth-generation peers. Through this chapter, ATEEZ established their definitive role as the group's theatrical vanguard and raw performance engine. This live-first reputation faced its ultimate test during Mnet's 2021 reality tournament, Kingdom Legendary War. Rather than treating the show as a typical idol showcase, ATEEZ directed a 6-part cinematic blockbuster series. Their performance of Symphony No. 9 from the Wonderland radically re-engineered their signature track by injecting Antonin Dvorak's classical masterwork into militaristic brass. This specific performance rearranged the track's original structural build to anchor the visual storytelling with a massive Kraken-slaying sequence. The choreography functioned as high-stakes stunt work, featuring bone-breaking acrobatics and full-scale sword fights, culminating in Jongho belting an iconic 4-tier high note from the center of a chaotic stage battlefield. They took third place on paper but completely dominated the narrative. Setting an uncopyable blueprint for the entire industry. And that forces the entire K-pop landscape to recognize a new standard. That competitive edge forged during Kingdom solidified a vital truth about their discography. ATEEZ write anthems by default. Every track is meticulously engineered by the production team to hit with the weight of a championship stage moment. To prove it, this baseline of pressurized explosive delivery was firmly set in early 2021, with Fireworks from Zero Fever Part 2. The track was aggressively tuned for the live stage, pushing the members' vocal deliveries into the red zone of live television. But it was in 2022 that this formula fully went viral globally. They released Guerrilla as the lead single for the World EP1 movement. The track was structurally built on cyberpunk synth lines and metalcore scream patterns, deliberately challenging what pop radio considered digestible. The song was explicitly engineered to be the soundtrack for a massive collective release of energy. It secured 6 domestic music show wins and pushed the album to secure 6 domestic music show trophies and land them their first top 10 debut at number 3 on the US Billboard 200. To bridge the gap into their next era and resolve the massive structural jump in their timeline, they dropped Halazia in late 2022. A haunting, operatic masterpiece that used booming orchestral movements and dark choral arrangements to escalate the narrative stakes to a dystopian fever pitch. They refused to downscale their volume as their career advanced. So in 2023, they dropped Bouncy.
Slow it down, make it bounce. 지금부터 fly. 좀 더 spicy.
It was a track from the world EP To Outlaw, a track that international critics famously labeled as theatrical, excessive, and utterly committed to its own brilliant absurdity. They carried that same chaotic energy straight into their modern 2026 era with Adrenaline on Golden Hour Part 4. The track proved that even as their career advanced, they refused to temper their foundational chaos. Every release they had felt less like a comeback and more like the climax of an action sequence designed specifically for millions of people to scream back in unison. With these tracks, ATEEZ locked in their status as the industry's best performers. On the 26th of June 2026, ATEEZ initiated a massive stylistic pivot with the release of Bad from Golden Hour Part 5. To prove their cinematic identity was a genre, they traded their industrial rock foundations for the humid, syncopated rhythms of Brazilian funk and Latin trap. Rather than relying on their usual military-style percussion, Bad introduced a syncopated, bass-heavy groove that reframed their intense energy. This allowed Mingi and Hongjoong to deliver more relaxed, rhythmic rap syncopations while still maintaining the track's cinematic visual. While the pivot sparked intense fan debate online regarding line distributions, the resulting music video neutralized any doubt. The movie-like quality of an ATEEZ track has survived and thrives even through a sharp stylistic turn in this latest comeback. This unbroken streak of aura-full anthems reveals a deeper creative truth: that ATEEZ having no soft genre is a deliberate creative choice, not a limitation. Across the vast tonal and emotional breadth of the Golden Hour series, ATEEZ has proved that their high-voltage delivery is entirely by design. Their massive dystopian lore of a cinematic timeline tracking rogue pirates and underground anarchists dismantling a totalitarian system serves as their script. They treat every music video and stage performance as an ongoing episode in a larger epic, using brutalist architecture, towering megaphones, and dizzying, high-speed editing to create total sensory overload. This uncompromising commitment demands an extreme level of physical exhaustion from the members. Choi San's performance style has become an industry benchmark because he refuses to merely execute choreography. San's lethal stage presence is heavily amplified by his notoriously chiseled, shredded physique, a weaponized combo of sharp agility and lean power that instantly captures your eyes. Where millions of fans cemented him as their ultimate bias. Alongside him, Hongjoong commands the stage with the erratic presence of a cinematic anti-hero, trapping biases forever during his unhinged, mocking smirk down the camera lens right before his explosive verse in Guerrilla. Mingi channels pure adrenaline through his towering posture and booming, gravelly rap delivery. And that has completely locked in fans during his iconic floor-shaking center dance break in Bouncy. Seonghwa shifts effortlessly between visual stillness and explosive outbursts, securing his bias status during his menacing, sword-wielding solo walk on the pirate ship mast during Symphony No. 9. Meanwhile, Yunho and wooyoung anchor the group's formations with a sharp, synchronized precision. Yunho permanently claims biases during his viral, incredibly smooth footwork lead in Say My Name, while wooyoung captures hearts during his seductive center solo performance in Cyberpunk, and yeosang provides an untouchable, mechanical aura through his unyielding composure during high-velocity routines, sealing his bias status with his iconic low-register center line in Halazia, while Jongho anchors the physical chaos by standing immovably at center stage every single time, capturing every vocal bias in music history. They are fully aware that the crowd feeds entirely on this raw member energy. The styling consistently leans into this untouchable aura, Intensity is a language they speak fluently, and they have spent 8 years ensuring that no one else in the industry can copy it with the same violent accuracy. To truly understand how deep their movie-like signature runs, we must look past their top-hitting title tracks and analyze the massive compilation of fan-favorite B-sides that the fandom holds up as proof of their cinematic identity. These deeper cuts are categorized by musical genres that match blockbuster film styles, ensuring every track delivers maximum theatrical drama. It begins with their dark cyberpunk synthwave collection, completely dominated by tracks like Cyberpunk, and This World. These records drive a sleek, relentless, and futuristic electronic pulse that perfectly mirrors a high-stakes, sci-fi thriller chase scene, allowing the vocal line to layer eerie, haunting harmonies over a wall of heavy mechanical bass. The sonic architecture expands further when looking at their militaristic war chant B-sides, an aggressive genre block anchored by massive stadium anthems like Win and Horizon. These fan favorites ditch standard verse-chorus pop structures entirely, relying instead on booming sub-bass hip-hop grooves, sweeping traditional percussion, and raw group vocal war cries that sound like a glorious pirate fleet heading into battle. To balance this aggressive energy, their high-octane heavy metal rock category, led by the distorted guitar-driven energy of Rocky. And the unyielding pace of The Leaders. These specific genre block effectively converts an ordinary stage arena into an explosive ATEEZ standard concert. Ultimate narrative payoff of this B-side compilation arrives in their grand orchestral resolutions, a sweeping emotional genre best embodied by the rock instrumentation of Answer. And the soaring, cinematic heights of Utopia. These specific tracks are engineered to function like the final, triumphant end credits theme of a massive fantasy epic film. ATEEZ completely validates their main title claim. They prove that their theatrical aura is not an accidental marketing concept tied to a single comeback, but a permanent foundation, built into the very concept of every song they write. That unyielding commitment to physical performance eventually outgrew standard arenas, forcing the international music industry to acknowledge their uncopyable stage signature. The definitive validation of their cinematic model arrived back in the 12th of April 2024, when ATEEZ became the first K-pop boy group to ever play the Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival Tidal Coachella Archive. Handed a prime slot on the massive Sahara stage, they confronted a mainstream Western crowd by overhauling their entire setlist into a raw live band arrangement. Ripping through a legendary 10-song sprint, including Say My Name, Hala Hala, and a heavy rock flag version of Guerrilla. This Coachella debut explicitly weaponized their cinematic background. They integrated traditional Korean performance art, transforming a standard festival slot into a multicultural theatrical production. This high-risk staging forced the Western mainstream press to treat them as global cultural forces rather than a niche pop act. The performance instantly went viral, trending #1 worldwide and drawing a massive global digital audience.
Had a great time with you all. Last song is coming up. Let's get it down. Coachella, make some
Conquering the American desert was a historic milestone, but maintaining that momentum required them to secure Europe's most prestigious stage. And recently, the sheer scale of their live production led to another historic booking. On the 28th of June 2026, ATEEZ commanded an outdoor crowd of over 60,000 international fans as the headliners for BST Hyde Park in London. They became only the third K-pop act in history to achieve this feat. Following Blackpink in 2023 and Stray Kids in 2024. Armed with the fresh ammunition of their latest release, Bad, they delivered a sprawling, festival-closing spectacle. The Hyde Park layout explicitly showcased their uncopyable scale. The crowd at Hyde Park roaring the lyrics back at the stage served as the undeniable proof of their global victory. By conquering the Western festival circuit on their own terms, they successfully evolved from a K-pop group into a dominant global touring juggernaut. They built an empire entirely on their own terms, proving that a cinematic identity can sustain a career at the absolute highest level of the international music industry. The trajectory of ATEEZ was never built on playing it safe or chasing casual radio listeners. From a rookie agency in 2018 to the main stages of Coachella and Hyde Park in 2026, they refused to compromise their high-voltage, aura-farming identity. Their entire discography is specifically designed to sound like the climax of a movie film, demanding an audience to nod along rather than just observe. Other groups make music for listeners. ATEEZ makes music for pure cinema.